this video I'm going to look at the different ways that you can clean up the Line 6 Helix's bass amps. Hey guys, I'm Tyler, and in this video I'm going to be running through the different ways to clean up the amps on the Helix, which I know is a strange thing because a lot of players prefer to use the Helix as a dirty amplifier, and that's what kind of most of the channels that I see out there are doing. Most of the people that use the Helix use it for the fact that you can run multiple amp simulators, and you can run a guitar amp on the top end and a bass amp on the lower end and things like that. But for me, the Helix has always been just a different way of being able to access lots of different amplifiers and effects, and just have a really versatile rig in a box. And I think that there's not much out there on the clean stuff, so I thought I'd try and do some videos that focus on different things about the Helix that aren't just heavy tones and heavy metal tones, and hopefully it'll appeal to some players that are more like me, as well as players that do like those heavy tones, just something different, a little bit of different material. But this is the first video I've done on the Helix, so at the minute I'm intending to do quite a few different videos of different things, but it might seem a bit sporadic and random to start with because I'm not really sure what people are after and what people want to know. But one of the things I've seen on the Line 6 Helix bass group on Facebook and other kind of comments and things around is how do you clean up the bass sounds on the Helix. And I think that is one of the things you can tell with Line 6 and the way they built it. It's designed to really reproduce those elements of an old school amp, vintage amps. They aren't really clean, they're kind of dirty, and that's kind of what adds to their character. And I think a lot of the time when you're playing live, you can use the dirtier tones and it doesn't really matter. But sometimes if you're in the studio recording and you want to use one of the amp sims or something, the engineer might want it a little bit cleaner, or indeed they might want it dirtier. And there's different ways you can go about that in the Helix. So I wanted to run through a few of those, and I'm going to use the Ampeg SVT and the cabinet for it as kind of the basis for all I'm going to talk about in this. There are amps that are naturally better for cleaner tones, things like the SVT Pro, the Aguilar 751, and the GK. There's different amps in the Helix that are the solid state amps really. The ones with solid state modelling in the back end are the ones that are more likely to clean up quicker. But I quite enjoy being able to really tailor the tube amps on the Helix to a cleaner tone, and that's one of the things that I find most exciting about the Helix is the capability you have to effectively tweak those little minutiae within it. So without any more chatting, I'm just going to run you through the options you have when you're trying to clean up a sound, the different ways that they react in the Helix, and hopefully you'll come away with some information and it'll be helpful. But if there's anything you want to know specifically in the videos on the Helix I'm going to do in the future, please do leave a comment below and tell me what I need to be talking about for this video series. I've got both a Helix floor and a Helix stomp. I've been using the Helix for years in different ways in my rigs, and it constantly develops and changes, and I've kind of found what I really like to use both for now. Primarily a stomp user really, it's always a part of my rig. But for these videos I'm going to use the floor just because you can see exactly what I'm doing. It's a little bit clearer, but everything I'm doing should be doable within the stomp, and if it can't be done I'll let you know in these videos. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a signal chain. This is going to be really simple. For this one I'm just going to put in the Ampeg SVT block, so that will include the 8x10 cab and the SVT head. So I moved along to there and then dropped down to the Ampeg cab, chosen bass, and then Ampeg SVT, and we'll go with the normal one for this moment in time. So there you have it, that's the Ampeg SVT with its default settings, and the SVT 810E cab with the 47 condenser mic. So I'm just going to play you a little bit of that so you can hear what that sounds like. So as you can tell, they're quite a distorted, vintagey sound when you go direct. I often find with the Helix, if you are plugging into a PA speaker, so I run Yamaha DXR15 cabinets when I use the Helix as an FRFR rig, and often the fact that you run it through a PA cabinet, you lose some of that direct tone and that distortion you get when you're plugged direct into the PA, like you've just heard. But yeah, with studio monitors, like you've just heard, it's just a little bit too gnarly for me. So what are the ways we can really clean it up? The first one is the most obvious one, which is to use the drive knob. So the drive knob on the front end, I'm just going to back that down, and hopefully you'll hear an improvement straight away. Apologies for my Helix being really dusty, but I use it a lot. So backing the drive down to 2.5, it obviously takes the volume down overall, so you have to boost that back up with the channel volume. Pop a couple of dBs on there. But yeah, the drive now. Still dirty, but it's definitely cleaned up a lot, and you gain that volume back by using the channel volume knob there. But if you want it cleaner than that, there are further options to be looking at. So put the drive to 2.5, and then we'll move across to the master. Being a tube amp, the SVT is going to distort on the back end, which is where the power amp tubes are. So what we're going to do is just turn down the master volume, and again turn the channel volume right the way up on the previous page. So I'll switch to the second page here, draw the master back to 5, and turn the channel volume back up, and turn the bass up. We now also have the option, now that the master's down and you can clearly hear it's a lot quieter and a lot less distorted, we're going to turn the drive at the front end back up and see how that changes the sound. So we've got a little bit more gain going into the back end of the amp. So hopefully you heard there's a little bit of a change in the way the distortion is reacting. To me it feels like there's a little bit more body to the sound and a little bit less of the outrageous distortion, but you use the master to add a bit more gain going towards the power amp section of the amp. You've got to remember that these amps are all recreations of real life amps, so it reacts the same as a tube amp would. So you've just got to keep in mind how that's working and logically think about each of the stages. So you've got the preamp stage, which has got your drive and your EQ, and then that goes to the power stage, which is where your master volume is, and that's the second page on the Helix. So going to just turn the drive right the way up, and then the master quite a long way down. And see what kind of effect that has. So then that quite clearly shows you how much of the drive that you get on the SVT model is actually from the power amp rather than the front end. That's the gain all the way up, the drive all the way up on the front end of the amplifier, and it's not really distorting. There's some definite fur there, and it'll come across more in this video with the DI. I'm hearing it through the speakers, my studio monitors, but you will have the sound just from the DI straight into Logic, and you're going to hear that a little bit more furry than I do. But yeah, it's not really that hairy and that gainy, despite the fact that the drive is all the way up. So now we've kind of established that really the power amp section is where a lot of the drive is coming from. So I'm going to reset it back to how it was when we first got it, and I'm going to show you how to clean up the power amp section on its own. So I've reset the amp back to the setting we had it originally, so how the Ampeg SVT normal comes stock as a preset on the Line 6 Helix. I'm just going to give you that example again. pretty distorted. So now I'm going to show you how much of a difference bias can make on the power amp section of the amps within the Line 6 Helix. In a real tube amp, the bias is how much voltage is going to the power amp tubes. So if you have it biased hotter, there'll be more power flowing to the tubes, which causes them to distort more. Whereas if you have it biased colder, which is less power to the tubes, it will keep the tubes never quite get to that saturation. They'll retain some almost stiffness in the sound. And this is where I think the Helix bias setting is really cool and can really change the character of your amp more than anything else. And if you're a guitar player or a bass player, using the bias setting can really give you what you want. And it's what makes certain tube amps different from one another. It's what makes your one tube amp different to the same model that someone else is playing through. Each of the tubes is slightly different. It's not a perfect science, and so the bias is having a big effect on that, as well as the tubes that are in each of your amplifiers. I'm going to run the bias, at the minute it's on 7.5. I'm going to turn it up and turn the master up as well, so you can hear how much extra distortion that adds. And then with the master full up, I'm going to roll the bias back off, and you'll hear how it cleans up the sound. So hopefully you can see there how that's changed the tone and the characteristic of the distortion that you're getting from the power amp. And then I find if I back the master volume down, this is how much volume is being demanded from the tube section. I'm also going to now back off the drive section and then run the master with more volume. And the master at full. So hopefully that's shown you how the three different sections interact, the drive knob, the master volume knob, and then also the bias, and how that can change the way that the master volume and the back end of the tube section distorts. So now we're looking at the last section, which is the third page on the Helix floor, and that is the cab simulation section. And I think this is possibly one of the biggest tone shapers in the entirety of the Helix setup, and the cabs really change most significantly how your bass sounds through a Helix. I find that most of the cabs in the Helix are fairly distorted by nature, and they're trying to recreate those vintage speakers, which aren't really super crisp, brand new, modern, scientific, highly accurate speakers. They are old school speakers, and distortion is a big part of classic bass tones. The SVT-E they used to model, I think, was something like a 74 cab, so it's not by any means a high-spec, high-tech SVT, but it's that classic SVT sound. The biggest thing about the cabinets on the Helix is that the distortion amount, I think, is changed mostly by the distance from the cabinet that you have the microphone. So if you imagine it in real life, having the microphone right up against the speaker and the grill, you're going to hear a lot more of what's really going on right in front of it. and as you move the microphone further back, you start to get a bit more of the room sound, and it's a little more of an overall sound rather than listening right up close. Almost if you imagine listening to someone talking with a microphone right here compared to having it a bit more like this, you're going to hear kind of the sounds of them talking and their mouth noise and things like that, which you don't really necessarily want to hear, but it would be a really direct sound. Whereas if you move it further back, you start to hear them how you're used to hearing someone speak. So I'm just going to show you this now. I'm going to show you with the microphone 1 inch away from the camera. And start moving that away. So I'll move to 3 inches. And then further away again to 6. So it doesn't clean it up. The amplifier itself is still producing a lot of noise, but I think you'll kind of hear that it's not quite so distorted. You've still got the same sound coming through, but it's a little bit more kind of holistic in the sound. You get the whole spectrum of the distortion rather than really hearing the gnarliness of the speaker right up close. I think in general for me, I quite like to have the speaker cabinet. It's kind of about 2 inches away. It's just a little less gnarly than having the microphone so close, but also gives you still that kind of more direct feel. The other alternative is to, of course, run a second parallel channel, which I'll go into in a different video because that's what I do in quite a lot of my Helix patches. But yeah, it's to run a separate clean DI sound and then blend the two together, and that gives you that upfront sound from having the DI, just original bass tone, and then also having the amplified sound with a little bit more distortion, but a little bit further away. It gives you a little bit more body, I find, overall, and just makes the sound a bit more 3D. There is, of course, one final way to reduce the amount of distortion that you have going onto your amp, and that is to bring the volume of the bass that you're inputting down. So you have two options with that. You can either roll the volume control off, so turn the volume of the Helix itself up. Or you have the option to drop in a gain block. So go down to volume and pan, mono, and then gain, and then simply back this off. So that's it for me from this video. Hopefully that's given you a few ideas on how to clean up your tone with the Line 6 Helix. Let me know what you'd like to see in the comments below. I want to do more of these Helix videos because I've been using the Helix for a long time, and I think I've got quite a lot of information that I could share and really delve into, but it's about knowing what you guys want to see. So as I say, let me know in the comments below what you want to see. Let me know what you thought of this video, what you thought was good, what I could do better. This is, as I say, my first Helix video, and hopefully the first of many. Thank you so much for watching. Consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell to keep updated with the latest things coming from my channel. And don't forget to hit that like button if you like this video, because that helps it get out to the rest of YouTube and helps people find it within the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you around soon.